Welcome, everyone, to this general webinar about Fontys University of Applied Sciences, ICT and Infrastructure. My name is 𝗬𝗓, and in this webinar I will be your moderator. There are more people present today. First of all, Mr. 𝗵𝗂𝗧, the teacher, who is going to present. But we're also assisted by some students, namely 𝗓𝗓, Nicola and Jelmer, and also my colleague, Mrs. Elga, will assist us in answering the questions that will come into the chat and give you more practical information about all aspects related to studying, being a student at our program ICT and Infrastructure. During the presentation given by Vladimir, you can get a lot of information about the content of this ICT and Infrastructure bachelor program, the study load, job perspectives, and many more. I guess the presentation will last for about 30 minutes. After that, we will have a live Q&A session, but as what I already mentioned in the chat, feel free to put all your questions in the chat while presenting so that we could already have a look at them and, of course, to give you good answers. Okay, for now, that's all. I want to give the floor to Vladimir to start giving you more information about infrastructure.
All right. Okay, so I guess I'm live. Welcome, everybody. Few words about myself. I'm originally from Minsk, Belarus. I guess that's the country between Poland and Russia. It's pretty often in the news recently. About 15 years of various software engineering experience. Quite a lot of years spent at Philips Healthcare and consultancy at Alton. So I do have quite a lot of software and software embedded engineering experience. For the last 6 years, I've been teaching at Fontys and mainly responsible for infrastructure semester 2 program. And also I'm involved in developing and teaching courses, and also teaching courses in infrastructure semester 1, 2, 3, and 6. So basically all semesters of infrastructure stream. What do you know about ICT infrastructure? So what does it mean to you? Well, looking into this picture, and if you look also in definition Wikipedia, it's defined as a broadly set of components which are the foundation of the IT service. Those components can be namely software and network components, and also various network devices. So as you could see, those servers, there's a mail server, web server, FTTP, proxy, DNS. You have a client PCs over here. You have wireless clients, right? So these are the hardware components. And then we also have networking devices, as you could see, the router and the firewall, the switch. So basically, that's what is called ICT infrastructure. And let's say in 90s or 80s, when internet was just introduced, it was quite a responsibility of so-called system or administrators to connect all these devices and to provide the service to end users or to enterprises. And it was quite a challenge and I must say the headache to those people to keep up with growing demands of end users in the sense of computational powers and storage. So we live in a different age these days, and in these days we use so-called cloud computing infrastructure. And that's the modern concept which has been introduced, I think, the last, in the beginning of 2000. This is where it really started. Cloud computing is a different concept where computer system resources, as you've seen on this picture, like servers and storage and computational devices, coming on demand. Yeah, so they're not actually a responsibility of the organization, but they are responsible by the cloud providers. Those cloud providers reside in so-called data centers. And so data centers are full with this kind of server racks which runs all those computational devices. And also, of course, the networking and routing devices which connect those. Cloud infrastructure is generally resembles in 3 layers and provides service in 3 layers, which are application and platform and infrastructure layer. So application layer, these are the layers, well, you could think for, Office 365 or, the Microsoft Teams that I'm using to broadcast this video, or Zoom application. So these are all examples of those applications running or provided by the cloud. There is a layer of platform. There you could think from, examples like runtime environment to execute, to develop and execute applications. This is normally where the positions of DevOps engineers take place. You could also think about the services for hosting applications. They're running here in the platform layer. And then the infrastructure layer, these are for computational and storage instances, or can be used. So these are raw, like virtual machines, virtualization systems, and their instances can be used for a certain needs of the company. So actually, if you would go back in the old terms, the program of infrastructure and ICT infrastructure wouldn't take place, because that was actually a degree of the college, and that in the Netherlands is called the MBO degree. But since we are progressing into modern cloud architectures, there's definitely a need, and there's quite a lot of demand on the specialists in cloud computing. So how's the program of ICT and infrastructure organized at Fontys University of Applied Universities? So as you know, we have 7 semesters, and the first 3 semesters are like the infrastructure, let's say, basics, I would say. The semester 4 is about specialization. Semester 5 is about internship, and then semester 6, like advanced topics of infrastructure are taught, and semester 7, which is the graduation internship. There are some variations, but I guess there are some deviations to this program, but this is what you could probably have an introduction in the other webinars. So, but let's go through the programs of each semester with some examples and courses we give. So, semester 1 is the main theme of semester 1 is to explore the networking protocols. Let's say we learn the basics of networking protocols and create the local area network solutions and the internet. So, of course, in semester 1, you also get a lot of introduction to the other streams. These are called the orientation to, for instance, to programming, to business, to databases, to media and other things. But on top of it, if you choose infrastructure, you're going to run the student facility project. So as example to that you need to connect several apartments and create the local area connection. Having a web server in each apartment, make a connectivity and routing between different apartment devices, and having a shared internet access for entire apartment complex. So that's an example of the student project for infrastructure in semester 1. So there's not much about cloud technologies or the automatization. These are the topics which are going to be taught in the following semesters. This is the semester 2. The semester 2 where you will be able to, or the main theme is to manage your journey to the cloud. So you're going to learn the basic concepts in order to build your own private cloud environment. The focus areas are divided in five themes, which are connecting, provisioning, managing, securing, and programming infrastructure. So in programming infrastructure, you will learn how to create, you learn the basics of web programming. You're going to be introduced with the Python and using libraries as tkinter and Flask. So you'll be able to provision basic web application. So on top of it, you will learn PowerShell and Bash. In connecting and provisioning, this is also actually those areas are combined in one class. You will learn about routing, switching, VPNs, how to set up firewalls, LDAP for Active Directories and radios. For provisioning, operation system, virtualization technologies, file system, setting up Active Directories, and for managing and securing. For managing, this is mostly focused on processes. So introduction to agile project management, service management, and ITIL. General data protection regulations. So not only on the technical part, but also on the organizational for infrastructure. And the last, which is also quite important in all infrastructure subjects, is the securing infrastructure. This is where you learn about information security, safety, risk management, and some technical aspects as what encryption, certificates, secure protocols, and intrusion detection system. So these are the courses and topics of semester 2. The example of a semester 2 project, this is also going to run an entire semester. So as I mentioned, you're going to create your own private, let's say, virtual infrastructure, and that's on-premise. So this is going to be provisioned on the server rack. So yes, you're going to use the virtualization technology. And in that virtualization technology, as you can see on the picture here, so you will be able to set up the Hyper-V components, like a domain controller and virtual machines, the virtual connecting elements like virtual switch and firewall, And of course, all the networking configuration has to be in the right place. On top of it, on let's say on those one of those virtual machines which you're going to use, you're going to install either Windows or Linux operation systems with of course with the specific needs. Yeah, some of them would be used for monitoring. The others would be to run applications on which you created with Python. So as for instance, on this virtual machine, as you could see, the students provision their Flask application, and on top of it, they even use the modern Docker framework. What is this project is about? This project is about provisioning the infrastructure for certain organizations which they want to run on premise. They don't want to use the cloud provider for the security reasons. And of course, it's also a very good exercise for you to learn all those elements of the cloud. Because in semester 3, we're going to use the cloud providers like Amazon or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud, and a lot of those elements will be hidden from you. Yeah, so it will be provisioned by the cloud. So it's an opportunity in semester 2 to actually feel and touch the hardware and connecting and experience this yourself. Then we move into semester 3, and semester 3 is all about, of course, using cloud platforms as Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, but also automation. So this is where the role of of programming infrastructure, which is becoming the most important. So the focus areas, you can see there we have more focus areas. We have 5, and in semester 3 we have 6. And a lot of those focus areas are starting with automating or orchestrating. Right, so you see 3 of them, 3 of the focus areas are about automation and orchestration. There is some difference in automation and orchestration. So in orchestration, we talk about, like, let's say, high level of automation. In automation, we talk about automating, a certain processes. Like you could see, like for the CICT, like continuous integration for setting a certain application. And for orchestrating, we'll be using the automation of the process for a certain geolocations or different types of applications and different infrastructures and configurations. So orchestration is a kind of a higher dimension of automation. Of course, also managing and securing is also remain as the learning outcomes or the important courses of semester 3. But of course, the level of the assignments and the complexity will grow in quite significantly compared to semester 3. These are the examples and the exercise our students doing in semester 3, and I also kindly ask some students to join. So probably after this presentation, they can explain a little bit about the exercises and projects they do. But in short, here's the picture on the left. This is, for instance, the example exercise the student do for security and network orchestration. They are configuring the components in AWS, the so-called VPCs and subnets and computational instances but also all kind of connectivity as a VPN and, as you could say, like a VPC peering and security aspects of a certain configuration. So that's an exercise, and on the right side, on here is this one, and the one below. These are the projects the student do, and they're running projects, the so-called case study projects, and this the project which they do for entire semester. And this project is basically to integrate the topics they are taught in classes. Right? So like all those topics which I mentioned here about orchestrating, automating infrastructure. So this is where tools like Terraform and Ansible will play an important role, because all those components which students create in AWS, they need to provision through the code, through the scripting, right? So as in semester 2, we did all the things manually. All those components were created manually. In semester 3, the goal is to create all those and provision all these components from a script or so-called Terraform or Ansible application. Yeah, their students are also encouraged to use other platforms, but of course, the amount of information and courses they need to absorb, so that so far their choices are limited to AWS provider. Like on this picture, as you can see, there's also one of our students who joined also this conversation. He was able to provision different components, and this is the flow of data, I believe, or scripts that and the order of those scripts to be executed to provision certain components in AWS. So that's about semester 3. Semester 4 will get into specializations, and the specializations are not bounded to ICT and infrastructure. There are specializations which are shared by all the other streams, also for software and technology. What I see that students quite often choose cybersecurity and smart industries, because these are specializations which are quite related. As you've seen before, the security comes as an important aspect in a lot of semesters, and smart industries is about all kind of Internet of Things device, so that also maps or connects really well with infrastructure courses. Well, semester 5, as I already mentioned, that's about in internship, and also students quite often choose the internship in cybersecurity or smart industry afterwards. And semester 6, this is going to be the main theme of the semester 6 would be to create an intelligent infrastructure solution. So this is where the modern architectures will play a role, like software-defined networks or zero trust architectures, or intelligent architecture for smart industry. Students will be involved with very close collaborations with partners in education. So very much kind of similar to internship, but of course there will be a lot of, well, also we as a teachers will be involved, and workshops will be provided, and they will also be, they're going to be guided to create smart solutions, smart intelligent infrastructure solutions. So semester 6 is still under development, because this is going to be in the next February when the semester 6 will take place for the first time. As ICT in infrastructure is a quite young stream, so it really started just about 2 years. So it's also for us, and there's quite an advantage for you because you really get the latest technology, but it's also true that some programs and some courses may change with the pace and demand, and we need to run several iterations and cycles to see, and perhaps to adjust to certain themes and topics of different semesters. How are the students evaluated? So the best thing of this grading system or evaluation system in all infrastructure semesters that we don't have any exams. Yes, it is actually a portfolio-based evaluation. So portfolio, this is a kind of a report that the student is required to submit 4 times, sometimes three times in semester 6, but most of the semesters 4 times. So the 4 times they are expected to submit a portfolio report where they provide a self-reflective process summarizing their learning activities. So it's not only about the result, but also all kind of critical reflection towards their challenges, towards how the teamwork, the research activities, and so on. There's also a cumulative formative indications are given 3 or actually 4 times per semester, and that's given in that scale as orienting, beginning, and proficient or advanced. And this is a kind of this is a cumulative. So the students start with orienting, and somewhere by the end of the semester, they're supposed to achieve proficient or advanced level for each of the course. And then looking into all the courses, this grading is translated into final US Go grade. So undefined, sufficient, good, or outstanding grade. So yeah, expect to give a lot of presentations and demos, and also well, a lot of teamwork, I would say, because you work in the groups of 2 to 3 students. Yes, it's a lot of I would say learning, not only from us as teachers or tutors or workshops or classes of it, but also from each other. There's quite a lot of a percentage of work which is done by researching or I would say self-studying certain topics. But of course, we provide quite a lot of demos. Yeah, it's applied sciences university. And this is also course-based, so you're given a quite, quite a good roadmap of classes and exercises and demos. What are the potential jobs of ICT in infrastructure? Well, I would start as I think it's also quite on demand, and this is our DevOps engineer and DevSecOps engineer. This is very similar to manufacturing environment, and the example of that would be, for instance, setting the continuous integration process for a certain software engineering environment. You could also see yourself as a cloud solution architect or engineer. There's also a new role which is called, which is coming as a NetOps engineer. So it's orchestrating network, as for instance in DevOps or DevSecOps are automating or orchestrating applications. There are also side tracks which you could take as a cybersecurity specialist, because you're exposed to a lot of infrastructure components, and you could also be a good, I would say, a backend web developer, because programming is also given on a quite good level in semester 2, and you will be able to, and backend web developer these days also needs to understand the cloud technologies very well. So these are the potential jobs I could see as a graduate of this infrastructure stream. Okay, well, to summarize, just to before we will dive into the question round, I wanted to give to have a last slide about the other webinars which will take place. So that's actually only November 18th, so this tomorrow we have some general ICT program introduction specialization, and on Friday the accelerated ICT and software engineering. So I guess this would give the final that I guess we could go into the question round.
Yes, thanks a lot, Vladimir, for this clear and transparent presentation about the content of infrastructure, starting from, let's say, the first semester, more or less. And you already indicated there are also some semesters that you do internships or graduation internships, so that will be semester 6 and 8. And of course, you will also do the minor program, and maybe you or one of the students later on can tell a little bit more about the options for a possible minor program linked to infrastructure. So I think for a potential student who is interested in infrastructure, this information was quite transparent. Maybe one more question, Vladimir, before we move over to the students. What, as a senior teacher, what qualities would you like to see in your future students to be successful in infrastructure?
Well, I would say, of course, first of all, and that's what we already had in semester 1. In semester 1, we had quite a good assignments that the students would experiment with so-called NetKit. And NetKit environment was running on Linux command line, and that was done on purpose. So the students really need to like command line. They also need to, they need to understand scripting, and they need to be quite, handy to work with the command line. Another thing I would say, they need to think a little bit more out of the box and having a kind of introspective mind, so that they could, sometimes finding solution is not obvious, and you need to also look into different, let's say, related subjects. So as in programming, for instance, you only need to learn about, the programming language, the object-oriented principle. If you look at infrastructure, you will need to dive into several aspects, like operation systems, like network devices and network protocols. So you would say kind of introspective, let's say, broad thinking mindset. Okay.
All right. I think this is a good bridge to introduce our students. Charlie, Nicola, and Jelmer, maybe you can switch on your video, please. And then I'm asking all of you the question: do you agree with the qualities Vladimir mentioned to be successful as a student in infrastructure? I don't know who wants to start. 𝗓𝗓, maybe?
Yeah, I think that the points that you need to...
𝗓𝗓, can you please switch on your video so that
yeah, of course.
everybody can see you?
Wait a second. Yeah, here it is, I think. Hi. Okay, so yeah, I think that for the infrastructure course, that it is indeed very important that you think a little bit more out of the box, especially since you dive really deep into, for example, operating systems or networking, and just one silly mistake can already lead to problems. And sometimes the logs are not really that clear, so you really need to investigate and think logically if like following the flow of a certain packet. So if you want to send, for example, a packet to one system to another, then really follow the flow and check, is this logical? Can a computer understand this? And doing so indeed, yeah, requires you to think a little bit more out of the box. So if something goes wrong, then maybe some other component is at fault than you would at first expect. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And 𝗓𝗓, what's your answer to my question about the qualities you should have as an infrastructure student?
Well, I agree with what Vladimir said about being able to use the command line, because it is literally like 80% of what you're gonna use. Okay, maybe 70. Also, you need to be very good at reading documentations, because that is basically what you're going to do to be able to learn all of the different open source applications or software that you're going to use or need to use for your different projects or case studies. Also, you need to be very good at problem solving, because trust me, you have like a lot of problems that you need to like figure out quickly, and they'll just keep on like coming and coming like an avalanche of them. And if you're not good at problem solving, and if you like if you burn out very quickly, it will be a bit tough.
Okay. All right. Thank you for this elaboration. And 𝗓𝗓, what's your contribution to this problem or to this question?
Well, I would have to agree with especially what 𝗓𝗓 said on the problem-solving part. Like, it is sort of like a requirement to have for a student, basically. Like, you need to be very stubborn, so to say. Like, if you're the type to give up early, then it really won't be for you. You have to be comfortable with just wasting a lot of time, potentially just trying to find something out, if that is what it has to come to.
So was it a good exercise with the Netkit in semester 1 to actually, that was really done on purpose to, so in semester 1 for the students to really struggle a little bit with the command line and configuring those Netkit nodes?
I would definitely say that is a very good example, because what I noticed, at least from my class, a lot of students weren't a big fan of that, mainly because it was so annoying for them to figure out. So that, I would say it's a good way to see who can go into infrastructure and who can't.
Yeah,
okay,
I totally agree with that.
That brings me to the next question then. You mentioned quite some obstacles you had in the first semester, but still you have chosen to continue with infrastructure and not with software or technology or business or media design. So can you give me the answer to this question? Yeah, let's start again with 𝗓𝗓. So why have you chosen to do infrastructure?
Well, to put it really blunt, it's just that I think that infrastructure is the most interesting topic. And yeah, as it is for infrastructure, it's also possible that when you're studying software or technology, that there's also a certain problem that you need to figure out. As long as you're doing IT, you have the risk that something goes wrong and that you need to fix it. And the whole point is that if you do something that you really like, then it doesn't really matter that much if something pops up and you need to spend some more time on figuring it out. If you really find it interesting, then you will not really mind that, and you will probably also figure it out eventually. and sometimes it will take a bit more time and sometimes it won't, but it's just as soon as you like it, then just go for it, and that's basically what I did.
Okay, thank you. And Nicola, what was for you the reason to choose infrastructure?
For me personally, I was actually trying to decide between technology and infrastructure, but since like I was younger, I've always been interested in how like computers communicate and how like basically most of what infrastructure does. So that's why I chose it. Plus, I usually like solving puzzles, and problem solving is like the fun part of it, even though sometimes it's really annoying. Like sometimes it can get very annoying, but once you manage to solve that small problem, like the gratification you get from it is unprecedented. Like it's very nice.
Okay, thank you. Yep. And 𝗬𝗲, what made you to choose infrastructure?
Well, for me, I already kind of decided it before I went to Fontys, because before I went to Fontys, I studied at an MBO, MBO 4, ICT, and ICT at an MBO is actually pretty much infrastructure based, which is why I really wanted to continue with that.
Okay, all right, that's obvious, thank you. Vladimir explained in his presentation the assessments, so the way we assess, and he mentioned no exams, but all types of other assessment modes like portfolios, demos, etc. How did you experience this, 𝗤𝗓?
Yeah, it was, yeah, at first a bit strange because of course I was used to getting tests and then trying to give it your all, getting a grade, and that's it. But now it's, yeah, actually a really good thing that literally everything you do counts towards your final grade. And it's not just that if you produce something that you will get a good grade, but the whole development from beginning to the end, how you learn, what steps you take, and your growth, everything is being measured. And yeah, when I compare that to the old school classic grading system when you get a test, and I really prefer this because they really look at how you grow as a student and not just at what you achieve, but also your professional skills. And okay. I think that's a really good thing.
All right, thank you. Nicola, what's your opinion about the assessment method?
Well, at first it was a bit weird because I was used to like like doing tests and all that such. But like once you start like getting into it, it's quite helpful, especially to self-reflect on what you've done or how you've done it, and like basically, as I usually say, it's like a time capsule of what like your development, and it's really nice to be able to like see from where you came from and where you went, because sometimes you don't really like see the progress you make, which might be annoying. But once, if there's like the PDP, which you can read sometimes, and you can see that, for example, I couldn't use this tool, or I couldn't do this or that, and now you can. It's really nice. It shows you that you've grown.
All right, thank you. And 𝗬𝗲, what's your idea about the assessment method? And do you think that by using this method, you have another study approach instead of getting tests?
I'm not too sure about the other study approach, but I would say that this method is definitely like better for overall development. Like having to study for a test is one thing, but usually the thing with studying is that you only do it to pass it, which means you don't really like memorize what you're doing. Just the way we have it now in the form of reports, it's way better because it actually makes you think about what you have done.
Okay, thank you. Vladimir also gave some information about the job perspectives. Do you already know what you want to do after graduation, Nicola, for example?
Well, I've been interested in cybersecurity or DevOps. I also I have an interest in backend development, And recently, since we started like working with the cloud, I've kind of also like gotten interested in that. So I have like quite the choices. So I haven't decided yet, but we'll see in the future.
Okay, so having a look at the clock, we still have a couple of minutes, but I already mentioned a few minutes ago, Vladimir, can you give some more information about the minor program, especially minor programs interested for infrastructure students?
Minor program?
Yeah, so that's in semester 6 or 7, sometimes that switches.
Oh, in semester 6, they have as I already mentioned before, in semester 6, they study for the advanced topics of infrastructure semester.
Yeah, but what I mean is, next parallel to the infrastructure program, which is the major program of the students, all students also do a minor program. That can be in semester 6 or 7. So probably for infrastructure, it will be scheduled in semester 7. I can also ask the students maybe. Nicola,
yeah, because I'm not that.
Your minor program.
I've heard about the minor programs that like usually good choices for infrastructures are the cybersecurity and the smart industries. And personally, I was like, I was more interested in the cybersecurity, but also like at some point I started like realizing that smart industry sounds really interesting. So both of them like sound very nice and will give you like quite the opportunities to learn about infrastructure. So. Yeah.
Okay, and 𝗂𝗓, do you have an idea which minor you want to do, or maybe you already did it?
I suppose specialization, I guess.
So,
𝗂𝗓,
you are unmuted.
Oh, yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still need to do my specialization first, of course, because I'm now currently in semester 3. But I was, a bit doubting between, cybersecurity, because I really like that. But on the other hand, I'm kind of striving to maybe do something with education. And I was thinking of going with that. So basically that I study some infrastructure, but also do education then for my minor and also for my specialization.
Okay. All right. So as I mentioned, we are almost through our time. Is there anything else, Vladimir, you want to inform us about related to infrastructure?
Well, no, I think it's what I wanted to mention is this is a really new profile, and that's it's also for us as a teachers because we are we are developing the semester at the time by teaching it too. So it's also kind of like a growing child for us. So I think it's also a good opportunity for students also to be involved in the program and to provide available, let's say, experience and feedback to us, so we could improve and let's say put more interesting topics and projects into this program. So as you would compare, for instance, to the other programs where the roadmaps have been established already for many years, and infrastructure is a really new program. So it's as I said, also for the new generations of students, so you have a really direct impact and influence to us in order to, let's say, to adjust this program and to make it better.
Okay, thank you for this final elaboration. Now, this brings us to the end of this webinar. For all potential students, this webinar will be recorded and will be put on our website. So for students who didn't have time to watch today, you always have the opportunity to watch it later. And if you have questions, then please send them to campuseindhoven@fontys.nl. For now, I want to thank Vladimir, but also our three students, 𝗓𝗓, Nicola, and Jelmer. Thanks a lot for your contribution. And also thank you to Mrs. Elga. She already put some information I'm seeing in the chat. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye. Wish you a nice evening, and hopefully we will meet again sometime, someplace in Eindhoven. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.